The seminar begins. The sky above planet Kyrex was always a dark green color filled with swirling clouds and cold winds. It was the perfect place for the Sarn Dominion to hold secret meetings far from human eyes. Inside a large black building made of stone and steel, hundreds of alien officers from different worlds had gathered for one special event. They called it the Final Human Solution. The building was quiet except for the sound of heavy boots and metal doors opening and closing. Guards stood tall with long rifles, scanning every visitor. Everyone had to show identity chips and go through 3 levels of security. This meeting was too important to take any risks. In the main hall, a large screen showed a burning Earth city. Alien leaders from different species took their seats in rows of curved black chairs. The walls were covered in banners that said things like "End the Human Problem" and "One Galaxy, One Order." The room was shaped like a half circle, and every chair faced the stage where a tall red-skinned alien was standing. His name was General Tavarin, one of the highest-ranking leaders in the Sarn military. His voice was deep and calm, but full of hate as he spoke to the room. For centuries, humans have resisted us. They are weak. They are emotional. They are chaotic. But somehow they always survive. That ends today. Our scientists have discovered their final weakness. And with your help, we will erase their kind from this galaxy forever. The room filled with cold laughter and applause. Some aliens banged their fists on the table in agreement. Others leaned forward with interest as the lights dimmed and a hologram appeared. It showed Earth from orbit, with glowing red points marking major cities. The plan was simple. Use psychic energy pulses to destroy the human brain without touching the body. It would leave entire cities standing but full of lifeless people. Silent and empty. As the presentation continued, nobody noticed the figure sitting quietly in row 3, near the center of the room. He wore a dark uniform like the others, but with a helmet that covered most of his face. His ID chip scanned correctly. His body temperature matched alien levels thanks to the tech under his skin. He didn't speak. He didn't move. But he listened to every word. His name was Gray, and he was human. Gray had been left behind years ago during the first wave of Earth's defeat. Everyone thought he died during the siege of Station Arcos, but Gray had survived. He had learned their language, stolen their tech, and erased his identity. Now he was here, sitting in a room full of enemies, watching and waiting. His heart beat slowly. He had trained for moments like this his whole life. Infiltration Division humans were rare and dangerous. They were the ghosts Earth used when war wasn't enough. On the stage, General Tavarin was still speaking. They are clever, yes. They adapt fast. They fight like animals. But they cannot resist mind control forever. Our new psychic weapons will strike their leaders first. No generals. No scientists. No resistance. More holograms filled the air. Alien ships, brainwave charts, simulations of entire cities falling silent. The aliens watched with growing excitement. Some took notes. Some whispered to each other. They truly believed they had won already. But the human in row 3 knew better. Gray tapped a small button inside his glove. It recorded everything directly into a hidden memory chip in his chest plate. Names, faces, weapon specs, launch schedules. He would not forget any of it. He looked up slowly, just for a second, and scanned the room. He counted the guards, marked the exits, and checked the cameras. Everything was stored in his memory with perfect detail. He had only one mission: get out alive and get the data back to Earth. One alien turned around and looked in Gray's direction, but only for a moment. Then he turned back to the presentation. Gray didn't blink, didn't move. His disguise was perfect. He had spent 2 years building it. This was not luck. This was strategy. The presentation continued with more brutal footage of human defeats, failed rebellions, and captured soldiers. They laughed. They are called human insects, weak, unpredictable. But they had no idea that one of those insects was sitting right behind them. listening, learning, and preparing. And when the general finally said the words, "We will begin the final strike in 13 rotations," Gray knew his time was short. He had to act soon, but not now. Not yet. For now he just sat still, silent, invisible, waiting. The ghost in the room. As the seminar moved into its second hour, the energy in the room shifted from cold confidence to heated excitement. Alien officers leaned forward with interest as the speaker on stage switched to the next part of the plan. This part was called Mental Collapse, Phase 1. It explained how the alien empire would first destroy human leaders using psychic towers placed near Earth's orbit. The waves would send invisible signals into human minds, breaking their thoughts and turning their strongest into helpless beings. The aliens watched with glowing eyes. Some of them had never seen humans in person, but they had heard stories that they were stubborn, that they were fast learners, that they were full of fire and rage and strange ideas. But now they believed those stories would soon become history, because the psychic weapon would attack not the body but the mind. It would erase who a human was inside without spilling a drop of blood. While they dreamed of easy victory, a man sat among them quietly listening, watching, recording. His name was still Gray to those who remembered Earth's fallen infiltration division. But to these aliens he was just another officer in black armor, with a blank face and a quiet attitude. He sat in row 3 near the edge of the chamber, where the light didn't reach fully and where the cameras rarely pointed. He had already recorded over 200 alien faces, matched them with names, heard them speak about weapons, troop movements, defense codes. He wasn't just spying, he was mapping the brain of the enemy, learning how they thought, how they feared, how they failed. Every word spoken on that stage became another piece of the puzzle back on Earth, the kind of puzzle that generals would use to win wars. Helmet he wore didn't just hide his face, it translated languages, tuned radio waves, and gave real-time readings of emotions from the room. He saw that many aliens believed this plan would finally break Earth's resistance, but 1 or 2 did not. They were silent, but their heart rate said more. They had doubt, and Gray always paid close attention to the ones who doubted. At one point the speaker invited questions from the crowd. A tall, thin creature with orange skin raised its hand and asked why humans had not already been wiped out after so many years of war. The speaker paused for a moment and then admitted that human unpredictability had always made them dangerous. They evolved fast, they built faster, and they refused to give up even when they should have. That unpredictability is why the psychic weapon was needed, because it attacked the one thing humans couldn't control, what was inside their own minds. Gray listened and stored the information quietly, but his thoughts were moving faster now. This was more than a plan. This was already in motion. The weapons were being built, the timing was set, the attack would begin in 13 rotations. That meant Earth had just under 2 weeks to prepare, or Fallon. Still nobody noticed him. One alien nearby dropped a data pad and bent to pick it up for a second. His eyes passed over Gray's boots. Then he looked up, gave a brief nod, and returned to watching the stage. He had seen nothing strange. Gray's armor was perfect, his behavior normal. His breathing was slow and controlled, his movements minimal. Everything about him said officer, not threat. But inside, Gray was planning 50 different escape routes, calculating time, speed, danger points, building strategies with every new piece of data. He knew he could not leave just yet. If he exited too early, he could be flagged. If he waited too long, the station might go into lockdown. He had to choose the exact moment where exit and chaos met. Then something unusual happened. The lights flickered just for a second. A soft blue pulse passed across the walls. Gray's helmet picked it up. It was a standard energy scan used to check for hidden tech. Normally it was used only during alerts. Gray didn't move. The scan passed over him. His armor absorbed it perfectly. The human tech inside him responded just like alien systems would. Scan finished, no alert triggered, and the seminar continued as if nothing happened. But Gray now knew one thing. Someone somewhere was being extra careful. Someone suspected something, or maybe it was just protocol. But in missions like this, there Was no such thing as coincidence. On the stage, the speaker introduced a new guest, a scientist from the psychic labs. She explained how the brain reacts to stress, how human memories begin to fade when exposed to continuous energy pulses. She spoke with pride about how their tests had turned a captured human soldier into a silent, smiling husk, one who no longer screamed, no longer fought, just stared into the air like his soul was missing. Gray clenched his teeth inside the helmet, but didn't react. That soldier might have been someone he knew, someone who had fought for Earth with courage. But now he was gone, erased by a weapon no one could see. Gray made a silent promise in that moment. They would not use that weapon on his people. He would not let them. And before this was over, they would remember what a single human in row 3 could do. Memories of Earth. The seminar was still going on, filled with long speeches, strange science, and dangerous pride. But Gray was no longer fully listening, because in the quiet space inside his helmet, his mind began to drift back to the place he once called home, to the blue planet they now called Target 17. He remembered the sound of rain on steel roofs, the way engines roared in the deep cities under Earth's crust, and the feel of sunlight through dust clouds. He remembered voices, faces, and smells from a life he had not touched in years, because survival had stolen everything and left only purpose in its place. Back then he was not yet Gray. Back then he had another name, and now buried under code and silence, but he had been born in one of the last free zones in North America, raised in the ruins of old cities where children learned to run before they learned to read, because alien patrols were always watching and always ready to take. He was 14 when he watched his sister get taken by the Sarn, and 17 when he joined the infiltration division, trained under Earth's black programs, taught how to hide among monsters, how to smile like them, walk like them, think like them, but never be like them. Never forget what he was and where he came from. The training was brutal, meant to break weakness and turn it into instinct. He had spent weeks in total silence, months without seeing the sun, entire years where he only existed to collect knowledge and survive. He had seen alien cultures from the inside, spoken in 12 tongues, worn 100 faces, and yet every mission, every act, every breath was still human, because deep inside the fire never went out. He remembered his last mission on Station Arkosawa, place orbiting close to a red dwarf star where the Sarn tested their war tech. Gray and 3 others had entered under deep cover, planted signal bombs, hacked systems, and prepared escape paths, but something went wrong. An early detection system triggered, and the Sarn struck hard. Gray had barely made it to the escape pod before it exploded, and no one ever heard from the others. Again, everyone thought he died that day, but instead he had fallen through space in a crippled pod until it was picked up by a scavenger ship owned by minor alien traders. They never guessed what he was because he was too burned, too broken, too silent. But he listened and waited until the right time. Then he escaped again, found new papers, new armor, and started building his new identity piece by piece across 3 systems, until he was just another officer in the great Sarn war machine, now sitting in row 3, surrounded by those who thought humans were simple targets. He remembered how long it had taken, how much pain and silence had been spent just to reach this room, and he reminded himself why he had done it, not just for Earth, but for those who never came back, for those whose names had been erased from the sky, and for the voice of his sister, which still echoed sometimes in his dreams, asking him if he had finished what they started. Refocused as the scientist on stage showed a new slide, a diagram of the psychic towers that would be built around Earth. Gray studied it, memorized every detail, then glanced down at the small metal plate inside his glove, where tiny pulses meant data was being recorded. Successfully, everything was going according to plan, but the hardest part was still ahead, because gathering the data was only step 1. Escaping alive was step 2, and neither would matter if he could not send the message back to Earth in time. Psychic towers had a weakness. He saw it now in the diagram, a delay between the pulses and the recharge, a window of 3 seconds. If you hit the core at the right moment, it would explode instead of firing. But to do that, someone had to get close, very close, and most would not survive, but humans had never been afraid of long odds. As he sat there in the cold metal seat, the alien beside him leaned over slightly and asked if he was going to attend the tactical breakout session in Chamber 2. Gray nodded once his voice filtered through the helmet in perfect alien tone. The officer turned back satisfied and said nothing more. Gray made a note of the new location because maybe something important would be said there too. Then a signal flashed inside his helmet, a quiet alarm. It was a timer set years ago, programmed only to activate if he stayed under cover for more than 4 cycles. It simply said this time to come home. Gray stared at it for a long second, then blinked it away because home was not ready yet. Earth still slept under false peace, but the storm was coming, and when it did, it needed warning weapons and a plan. He checked his suit, his chip, his exit path, and his memory logs. All were green. He had what he needed. The only thing left now was the escape end. As the next speaker walked onto the stage laughing and waving his claws in mock imitation of a human, Gray thought silently to himself, "You will not laugh for long, because the ghost in the room had a name and a mission, and soon, very soon, would remind the galaxy what it meant to make war with the children of Earth, a glitch in their system." Seminar began to thin out as the main speeches ended. Alien officers broke into smaller groups, some heading to tactical chambers, others moving to briefing halls or research exhibits. Scattered around the station, every hall was watched, every door guarded, but nothing felt rushed. The aliens believed they were secure, that no threat could walk among them, especially not a human, not here, not this deep into their heart. But Gray was still there, silent, careful, walking with the same posture as the officers around him, his face hidden behind a black helmet that had been crafted and tested to beat every scan in their system. He walked down a long corridor toward Chamber 2, where another session was starting, but his eyes were scanning everything around him. Door codes, camera placements, heat sensors, security guards, all mapped in his mind with precision. Nothing escaped his memory. He passed 2 guards speaking in low tones about troop deployments, and 3 technicians carrying strange cube devices filled with pulsing red lights. He memorized the shapes, symbols, and numbers. Without a pause, suddenly a soft ripple ran through the air, not loud, not sharp, just a slight distortion like heat rising from metal. His helmet caught it instantly. His internal systems lit up with warning glyphs. It was another scan, a deeper one. This time not just for tech, but for DNA traces and biological signatures. Something in the system had triggered a higher level alert. Gray kept walking, no change in pace. His armor responded like it should, all his false readings active and perfect. But now he knew something had changed. Someone somewhere had noticed a flicker, maybe a heartbeat too slow or a movement too precise, something too perfect. He had always known the disguise would not last forever. He just hoped it would last long enough. In Chamber 2, the air was cooler. Dim blue lights glowed on the ceiling as another alien commander took the stage, this one smaller but with a sharper voice. He began a breakdown of how the Sarn would manage human resistance during the psychic strikes, showcasing new containment zones, prison layouts, drone strategies, and emotional control programs to keep surviving humans quiet after the collapse. Gray stood at the edge of the room, just inside the shadows where the wall curved behind a support pillar. It gave him a partial view of the stage and also of the 2 exits in case things went wrong. His body was still, his mind running calculations. Every few seconds he checked for new alerts on his HUD, watching closely for signs that his cover was slipping. Then it happened again, a faint shimmer in the air, another scan, but this time it lasted longer and swept lower across the room. His systems began to show flickers, just milliseconds of delay, barely noticeable, but enough to raise concern. They were tightening the net. Not for him specifically, not yet, but something had spooked them, and he needed to move before suspicion became certainty. He slid silently from the wall, moving toward a secondary hallway that led to the lower levels of the station, places only maintenance workers and engineers used. Less cameras, fewer guards, more shadows. As he moved deeper into the lower decks, the lights changed from blue to amber, and the air smelled of oil and coolant. The walls were closer, pipes ran along the ceiling and floor, and echoing Steps of distant workers filled the space. He reached a junction where 3 hulls met and paused, checking. A panel hidden behind a broken access door. The signal was weak, but enough as message. Beacon had been planted hours earlier. Disguised as a part of the cooling system, it was now live and pulsing, waiting for one final key input before transmitting everything to a stealth drone hidden outside the station. But just as he reached for the final sequence, a voice echoed down the hall. "Officer, halt." The tone was sharp, not alarmed, but firm, not loud, but enough to stop Gray's movement for 1 second. He turned slowly with perfect control. A tall alien security captain stood at the far end of the hallway, his eyes locked on Gray's armor, one hand near his weapon, the other holding a scanner eye. "Have a request for a random clearance check. Step forward." "Please." Gray nodded silently inside his helmet. His heart rate did not rise. He walked slowly toward the officer, posture relaxed, breathing normal. His hand brushed the inside of his wrist, tapping a small command that sent a delay signal to the beacon. It would wait another hour before transmitting. Now the priority was escape. The officer scanned his badge, then his armor, then paused, staring at the screen. Something wasn't matching exactly. A slight error. Maybe it checks him off, maybe just a fault. In the scanner, Gray leaned forward slightly, pretending to be curious about the delay. The officer frowned, tapped the scanner again, and suddenly, Gray moved. It was fast, silent, brutal. One hand struck the scanner, twisting it out of reach. The other hit the officer's throat, cutting off his shout in 2 more steps. Gray had the alien down and unconscious, dragged behind a support column, and hidden beneath a thermal blanket pulled from a nearby storage hatch. The whole thing took less than 10 seconds. Reset his helmet position, checked the corridor, and continued walking calmly, as if nothing had happened. He would need a new route. Now the upper levels were too risky. He had to reach the drone bay or an emergency escape hatch, but the data was safe, and his time was short. Somewhere far above, the generals were still talking about victory, still drawing plans of domination, still laughing at their clever traps. But in the lower decks of their mighty station, a single human was already slipping away like a shadow through cracks they could not see, and before long the message he carried would burn across the stars like fire. Unmasked Gray moved like a ghost through the lower levels of the alien station, each step chosen with care, each breath calculated. His mind processed everything around him faster than most machines. His body flowed between shadows, staying just out of sight, never too fast, never too slow, just another quiet figure in a place no one really noticed. He had done this for years, lived under layers of silence and disguise, and now it was reaching the final stretch. The hallway ahead led toward the drone hangar, a maintenance route not often used, lined with pipes hissing quietly and vents blowing recycled air into the tight space. There were no cameras in this section, too old, too deep in the structure for regular upgrades. Just old metal and forgotten walls, and that was exactly why Gray had picked it as part of his exit plan. But something was wrong. His suit picked up vibrations behind him, faint but steady footsteps, the kind that matched someone trained, not a worker, not a guard. On routine, this one moved with caution and purpose, and even in this place, even in this moment, Gray understood what that meant. Someone had followed him. Someone had been watching longer than he thought. He took a sharp turn into a dark utility tunnel that curved around the central cooling systems. It was narrow and lit by dull red lights running along the floor. The sound of footsteps grew softer, then louder again, which meant the follower had picked up speed, closing the distance. Gray did not run, not yet. Instead, he reached into a hidden compartment on his thigh, pulling out a small black tool that looked like a simple rod. He pressed it against the wall and activated it. Instantly, the wall shimmered, revealing a narrow vertical gap between panels barely wide enough for a man to fit. He stepped inside, pressed against the cold metal, and waited. 10 seconds later, the follower arrived, tall, armored, with a long weapon slung over one shoulder. It was the same officer he had seen during the clearance. Check, the one with the scanner, now awake, now aware, and now hunting. The officer paused near the wall, scanning the tunnel ahead, then turned slowly, almost sensing something, but not quite sure. His fingers hovered near his weapon, but he did not draw. Instead, he took one step forward, then another. And just as he passed the panel, Gray struck. The move was precise, sudden, and final, a silent blow to the side of the helmet, a twist of the wrist to disarm, and a powerful strike to the back that dropped the alien to his knees before he could call for help. Gray stepped out fully and forced him down to the floor, holding him there with one knee while he pulled the helmet free. Alien looked up, blood in his mouth, eyes full of hate, but also surprise, as if still unable to believe what he was seeing. "You are human," he spat the words as if they were poison. Gray said nothing. He did not need to speak. He simply looked down at the officer and stared. "You will not leave this place," the alien hissed. "Your kind is finished. Your planet will burn. Your minds will be blank, and your leaders will beg for silence." Gray reached into his belt and pulled a small device no larger than a coin. He held it up in front of the alien's face and pressed the center. A hologram appeared above it, showing the recorded seminar, all of it, the speeches, the weapons, the plans. And then behind it flashed a map of the station with a blinking red dot already pulsing near the drone. "Bay, your kind talks too much," Gray finally said, "and you forgot who taught humans how to survive." The alien lunged in rage, but Gray was already moving, stepping back, sweeping his leg to knock him down again, and delivering a final strike to the base of the skull. Not to kill, just to end the threat for now. The body slumped motionless, unconscious. But alive. Gray did not waste time. He dragged the body into the utility hatch, sealed it behind a panel, and turned back toward his path. He was close now, too close to stop. The drone bay was just ahead. The signal beacon was almost ready, and Earth was waiting for his message, but he knew things had changed. The station would now be alerted. The missing officer would trigger a search, and soon every corridor would flood with guards, scans, and lockdowns. He had maybe 10 minutes before escape became impossible. He reached the final access tunnel leading into the drone chamber. The doors were sealed with biometric locks, but his armor had already stored the necessary codes. He placed his hand on the panel and watched the green light flicker, then fade. The doors slid open, slowly revealing a wide hangar filled with rows of sleek black drones, shaped like knives with wings, engines humming faintly in standby mode. At the far end of the hangar, a control console blinked with soft light. Gray ran to it, connected his glove chip, and began the upload. The files poured into the system. The signal beamed outward, bouncing between relays until it reached the stealth drone. Hidden just beyond the moon's orbit, a message began transmitting across space, carrying the warning and the data toward Earth. He had done it. The plan was complete. The truth would reach the commanders. Back home they would know about the towers, about the timeline, about the final strike. But Gray knew he could not celebrate. Not yet, because even now alarms were sounding in the upper decks, voices shouting over Cum's doors, locking, sirens rising. They knew now. They understood too late, but they knew, and he would not let them take him alive. Retaliation protocol. Far from the alien station, spinning in the quiet cold of space, Earth was stirring beneath its cracked skies and scattered cities and bunkers deep under the mountains, and hidden bases buried beneath oceans. Alarms had begun to flash. Maps lit up with warnings. Code words passed between hands like weapons, and eyes that had seen too many wars looked toward the stars once again with sharp focus and silent rage. The message had arrived. It burned through satellites and hidden relays. It reached command towers built in the ruins of old capitals and flickered on the screens of war rooms that had never truly shut down. It came with no signature, no voice, only a pulse of raw data. But those who knew recognized the patterns, the encryption, the mark of an agent. Once believed lost, and now returned. "He is alive," they said. "Gray is alive." And he brought them the enemy's heart within minutes. The information spread. Tactical teams poured over the alien war maps, memorized the psychic tower blueprints, tracked ship movements across the solar system. It was all there, the when, the how, and most importantly the where. Earth had 13 days before the psychic strike would begin. 13 days to prepare or be erased. But Earth was no longer the planet the aliens remembered. They thought it was broken, tired, disorganized, but the truth was something far more dangerous. Earth had been preparing quietly in the shadows, building quietly beneath the soil, hiding power behind silence. Now that silence cracked, and what rose from the depths was something far older and far more terrifying than the aliens had planned for. Called it Protocol Retaliation. No sirens, no speeches, just a single order passed across screens like a whisper among wolves. Prepare the strike. In the cold dark of Antarctica, silos opened, releasing black ships with red lights that pulsed like angry veins in the dead of night. They moved without sound, cloaked in technology, stolen and twisted from alien designs above Europe's satellite. Weapons shifted into firing positions, their lenses gleaming with energy charged by years of stolen research. In the deserts of Asia, old mobile units rose from underground bunkers, their wheels rusted, but engines hungry and deep in orbit. Sleeper drones powered on their wings, unfolding for the first time in a decade. Earth had not forgotten, it had not surrendered, it had evolved. Inside Command Vault 17, General Soren stared at the hologram of the alien psychic towers. His eyes did not blink. His voice was low as he addressed his staff, all of whom stood without speaking beside him. Begin Phase 1, he said. Make them bleed first. Within minutes, Earth's agents scattered across alien systems, activated old sleeper codes. Minor explosions tore through fuel depots, power stations, and relay beacons. Entire supply chains vanished overnight. Aliens awoke to darkness, wondering what had gone wrong, unaware that humans had already begun cutting them down from the inside. Data revealed even more. Each psychic tower had a vulnerability, a moment between pulses where the core was open, exposed. And if struck at that exact second, the entire system would collapse. But it required someone close, someone fast, someone with nothing left to lose. Earth began assembling strike teams, calling in names whispered in legends. The kind of warriors who had fought in the first contact wars, who had gone missing and were never listed as dead. Only gone. These were not soldiers, they were ghosts, sharpened into blades, each carrying the kind of madness only survivors could understand. Above the clouds, new ships rose, black and silver, powered by reactors built from scavenged alien cores. Fast, hard, and completely silent. They did not fly like Earth's old ships. They danced like shadows, bending around radar, slipping past sensors. Their pilots linked directly to the ships by neural ports that made them think and move as one. And yet, even with all this preparation, Earth knew the price would be high, because when the towers fired, the damage would be instant. Whole cities might fall before the first one was destroyed. And Gray knew that too, even as he moved through the drone hangar on the alien station, planning his final escape. He had done his part, he had given Earth the key, but keys meant nothing unless someone opened the door, and that door was war on the alien capital. World panic was spreading. Their leaders argued behind thick glass walls. Their generals shouted at missing data. Their weapons flickered and glitched. Their codes failed. They had built their empire on control and prediction, but now both were gone, replaced by something they could not understand. How did they find out? One asked. How did a human get inside? Another said. But deep down they already knew. It was the human in row 3, the one who never spoke, the one who walked through their gates, wearing their colors, listening to their plans and leaving nothing behind but fire. Back on Earth, as launch codes were confirmed and final commands sent, Gray's voice echoed across one secure line. Just 6 words recorded before transmission ended. Send them everything I gave you. That was all. No goodbye, no name, no praise. Just the final spark before the fire. The seminar aftermath. The Alien War Council gathered once more in a room that had once felt like a temple of victory. The same walls that echoed with laughter now sat in silence. The great banners that had declared human extinction now hung still like tired memories. The generals stood around the hologram table, their faces pale, their voices low, their pride shattered by something none of them had planned for. Human had escaped. That was the first report, spoken like a curse through the teeth of a wounded commander. He had vanished from the drone hangar after delivering the signal. The alarms had screamed, the lockdown had sealed the exits, but by the time security arrived, all that remained was a body left in his place, one of their own, unconscious, stripped of weapons and identity, left behind like a signature in bloodless They searched the station for days, sweeping every hall, every vent, scanning every item, even the air. And the water, but the human was gone, disappeared like a shadow through cracks they could not seal. Then came the second report, and that one struck harder than any. Weapon Earth had launched a counteroffensive across 6 sector psychic towers were failing before they even powered on drones, had been hijacked, supply lines collapsed, and elite alien outposts were reporting full communication blackouts. Entire fleets went missing with no distress signals, no survivors, no wreckage, only silence. Like the stars themselves were swallowing the Empire piece by piece, and the message that came with the first destroyed tower was short and cold. You taught us fear, now learn it yourself. No name, no threat, no signature, just words typed in a human font. Broadcast across alien command lines, repeated until even their children had heard it, whispered in fear back. In the seminar room, the leaders argued about what to do. One suggested retreat, another demanded total retaliation, but nothing worked because every strategy they built began with the same weakness. They did not know where the next strike would come from, or when, or how. Only that it would, and it would be fast and quiet and final. Because the humans were no longer reacting, they were hunting across the Empire. More seminars were canceled, outposts locked down, recruitment centers emptied, spies turned on their masters, and rumors spread like infection. Tales of ghost teams of human warships that vanished from radar. Tales of artificial storms that wiped cities overnight, and above all, tales of the human in row 3 who listened to their secrets and walked out untouched. The fear became something real, something that reached into every control room and sat beside every officer like a pump. Second shadow alien commanders began checking every soldier, scanning every recruit, looking for mismatched blood readings. They distrusted their own people. They whispered about hidden humans among them, even when no evidence was found. Paranoia became policy. The humans had not just struck back, they had unbalanced the entire empire. And somewhere deep in a lost system floating beyond the reach of both star maps and patrols, Gray watched it unfold through stolen signals and scattered intel. He listened to the panic, read the intercepted reports, and saw the cracks grow wider. He did not return to Earth. Not yet. His mission was not over, because now he was something more than a soldier, more than a spy. He was a myth, and myths travel faster than ships. On a quiet moon far from the war, a group of young aliens sat in a training hall listening to their instructors speak about human tactics, but unlike before, there was no mockery, no laughter, only careful words. And a quiet warning: do not underestimate them. They adapt, they endure, and they remember. In the back of the room, one student raised a hand and asked if the story about row 3 was real. The instructor looked down, paused, then nodded once slowly. No longer trying to deny the truth. Back on Earth, the command towers remained silent. No celebration, no speeches, only movement plans within plans, layers of defense wrapped in layers of misdirection. New technologies rising from old ruins, weapons tested in silent, ships built beneath ice. They had survived the first wave, and now they prepared to outlast the next general. Soren stood at the edge of a launch platform, watching the sky. The stars looked the same, but something in him had changed. Not fear, but focus. He knew now that Earth would never be safe again. Not truly, but it would never be helpless either. Because humanity had remembered its place in the galaxy, not as prey, not as servants, but as survivors, as architects of their own future, as the one species you should never trap, never lie to, and never let sit quietly in row 3. The war was not over, but something bigger had happened, a shift in the story, a turn in the tide. And whether it took years or centuries, the galaxy would never forget the lesson taught in silence and shadow, that when the last line breaks and all hope seems lost, you do not call the humans first, you unleash them. The end.